Time then to introduce the playable teams in the ZFL, and the first thing you might be wondering is, why do we need to introduce the teams? Can't I just make my own? The answer to that is no. The entire point of what we're doing here is that the teams and the game world has existed before you got here, and as such you are taking over teams that have already existed and competed previously. That being said, most of the teams are still pretty rookie in their makeup, so you'll still have the chance to shape them in the way you want. So 10 teams make up the initial ZFL Elite Division. Beneath that, there's the ZFL Second Division and the ZFL Third Division, and these also contain 10 teams each. Those Second and Third Division teams are initially unplayable. My aim is to get 10 people to fill out the first season. If I get more interest than I expect, then we can open up the Second Division as well. But in the short term, just keen to make sure that I can work out exactly what I need to do to run this thing properly, and I don't want to overdo it initially. Worth pointing out as well that there will be an opportunity to create teams yourselves. Think of it as like a Kickstarter bonus as we get underway here. More on that at the end of this video. So the first playable team is one you'll probably all recognise, although in a slightly different guise, the Barak Gin Boozers. This team, of course, based heavily off my old Rebel team from many, many moons ago. Now applying their trade in the ZFL, the Boozers should be a fairly dependable pick and expect to start the season strongly, because of course Dwarfs good under the new rule set. However, old habits die hard, and the team's tactics cards are a significant problem that will take time to solve. These are generally not things you'll want to be doing. Examples include fielding injured players and inducing star players that might not provide all that much value. Additionally, team owner Terry Tennant wants you to field injured players so that you can promote his side business, of course, the Discount Armor Emporium. If dwarfs aren't your cup of tea, how about orcs? This is the Black Crag Bozos. The Bozos have one objective, and that is to be the most violent team in the division. But there's a few caveats along the way. The team are set up as a proving ground for their owner's warband. And as such, any players that prove to be particularly violent will probably find themselves promoted out of the team and into leadership positions within the warband. And as such, you'll have to fire them. Overall, though, this is probably the easiest short-term job available from those to start with. Very little in terms of expectation for league position, which means little pressure. But you'll have to lean heavily on those strength skills to ensure that you are the most violent team by the end of the season. Next up are the Sartosa Deckhands, and the first thing to say is this is an undead pirate team, and of course the first part of that means that you will actually need to own the Shambling Undead from the Blood Pass. The Deckhands have a unique mechanic around plundering their own petty cash to keep as treasure, so the way you want to play this team is keep your team value fairly low, get lots of petty cash, and hoard it away as treasure to ensure the team owner is satisfied. Undead normally fairly good out the box, but this will be a little bit more difficult. The team has generally not been all that focused on Blood Bowl. They've got a bloated roster and no rerolls to start with. So the Deckhands are probably not the best choice for anyone keen to win this thing in Season 1. On a similar theme, we have the Esper Enchanters, the only Imperial Nobility team in the ZFL so far. The Enchanters should only be considered for selection by a player looking for a challenge. They have a unique management structure which employs a Director of Blood Bowl who insists on meddling in team affairs. What that means in practice is the Director of Blood Bowl will add extra tactics cards to your deck. There's a few there to start with, and he may well add more over the course of the season. The Director of Blood Bowl will also insist that these are completed during the season, which will make things more challenging in terms of developing the team how you want to. It's humans next, and probably a fairly famous human team for those who watched Rebel RPG all those years ago. The Missville Mavericks are back and are widely renowned as one of the most terrible teams in the history of the sport. The team are hoping for a change in fortune with their unique mechanic. They've signed Griff Oberwald's son, Jack. As part of that deal, a Cabal Vision TV documentary will follow the team around during the season, which has various additional rules and mechanics to ensure that the audience gets a good show. Of course, with the documentary being focused on young Jack Oberwald, the TV crew will be keen that you make the best use of his skills and probably develop Oberwald into the star player. If you're looking to get involved but have a little bit more of a laid-back experience, then the Qua Quicks are probably the way to go. This is a Lizardman team who've secured their place in the ZFL at the very last moment, and as such their roster is not exactly perfect to start the season. However, it is very much considered a development season for the team, and the entire goal is just to stay in the elite division and avoid those 2 relegation places in 9th and 10th. That should mean that the first season is fairly straightforward, unless something goes horribly wrong. But if that is achieved, then expectations are likely to rise in Season 2 and beyond. If blood and chaos is more your thing, then consider applying for the job at Vinscore Defiant. This team have 2 simple goals, and the most prominent of which is lots and lots of blood. They are essentially a fouling team. It's all they really care about. The downside of that, of course, is that this is a Chaos Renegades team, which means that they are perhaps not exactly top tier. Hitting all of the team's goals should be fairly straightforward. The downside is that team sponsors are a thing, and they will insist that you do need some points on the board. So there'll be times where you'll have to maybe look elsewhere from what the team want to do in an ideal world. If Old World Alliance are your thing, and I imagine that they're not, but if you fancy a challenge, consider Royal Santa Margherita. This is listed as a medium difficulty job, as you can see, but some parts of this will be easy and others will be a lot more difficult. The owner is keeping a low profile because the team was expelled from their previous league for financial misconduct. All of which means 2 things. Firstly, the roster is a bit haphazard, with lots of new players having to be signed very last minute and not gelling together with any sort of coherent plan. The other problem is that the team have significant fines that they have to pay off. So large chunks of your treasury are going to have to be diverted towards solving that problem before the end of this season. The team are mainly looking to restore their reputation, so just staying in the elite division will be the goal, but plenty of potential stumbling blocks along the way. The final 2 teams are both of the same faction and have a long-standing rivalry. First, the Tlanel Celtics should be one of the strongest teams in this division. If you're keen to win this thing, and you're keen to win something with Pro Elves, this could be your chance, because the Celtics are renowned for their strong and entertaining play. They'll be one of the favourites to win the division, but of course with expectation comes pressure, and the Celtics will be expected to challenge for the championship straight from the off. Not only that, but the incoming coach will absolutely be expected to win the grudge match with the Tlanel Rangers. If you know anything about football, you'd have probably seen that coming. Now, the Rangers have generally lived in the shadow of their more illustrious elven neighbours. Because of that, they are determined to forge their own path as a bashy elf team. Is that possible? Who knows? But this is a chance to try. This is much more of a long-term project, and finishing mid-table will be considered good enough for now, but eventually, fans will hope to see the Rangers become the big team in Tlanel. And of course, they'll demand victory against the Celtics every time they meet. So, of course, every team starts with a selection of tactics left over from the previous coach. Example on the right from the Boozers tactics deck here. These define how the team have become used to playing, so they cannot immediately be changed. There may be opportunities to get rid of some of these cards over the course of the first season or beyond, but it will be slow progress. Final thing to say is what I mentioned before around new teams being added to the game world. There is a chance if you have any ideas for interesting team builds with interesting backstories or anything that you might want to put forward, you can do so via the form that will be available on my Discord server. Obviously, I can't promise that everything will be put into the game, but we have the second and third division to fill out, as well as the semi-professional divisions, the amateur divisions, and of course other leagues that may exist in the game world that are not playable but exist just for fluff reasons. So if you've got anything in mind or anything that strikes you as a fun idea, let me know, and the best ones may find their way into the ZFL. All right, that's it on the available starting teams. The next video will be all about team management and the additional rules that exist in the ZFL.